Welcome back, everybody. It is the Working Brother back at you with another talk. Drago Bosnic, Drago is back. Drago, welcome back. How are you doing?
I'm great, man. It's always great to be here.
Excellent. Good to see you. We've been planning this recording for a couple of days now. We've been circling around each other and how should I say, trying to get each other motivated to get through this month's news that you've, comedy articles. Yeah, this is a comedy. Nothing we say here has anything to do with reality. And Drago, although we didn't record anything, has been busy writing the comedy for us. We've got a total of, I think, 20-something articles to get through today. We won't be doing all of them in one go, but we might get to some other things too. This is a comedy show after all. I just showed Drago some of the memes. I don't think I can show you guys some of the memes. I shared them on Telegram. I tried to share them in another talk that I recorded recently, but that needs to be edited. Anyway, is Turkey giving up on the S-400 to get back into the F-35 program? Drago, take it away. You know what to do.
Yep. In this case, this is old news at this point. The Turks have been flirting with this idea for years because it's not just about the F-35, but also the fact that the U.S. is refusing to help Turkey modernize its aging F-16 fleet. So in order to get back on America's good side, they have to give something. And because the Turks are extremely trustworthy, as they've always been, they decided to give up on the S-400. And there are various, possibilities how they could do that. And one of those is that they can allow U.S. specialists to inspect the S-400. And the other possibility is to sell the system to another country, to a third party, and possibly to deliver it to the Kiev regime as well. So, I guess the S-400...
Wait. There's so many jokes in what you just said. Like I can't control myself. How many MIRVs do you think already have Ankara's name on it? Also, what do you think Medvedev's take is on this development? And seriously speaking, though, do you think there's any chance that something like that could happen? I had no idea about this upgrading of the old planes. So, that makes sense. If you're not going to let me upgrade your old planes, and I have to buy your new planes and, blah, blah, blah. It's like that, subscription model of everything that they do. But, I wouldn't, it's not outside of the realm of possibility because the Turks have done these things already. And, they've delivered the Bayraktar, they've delivered a bunch of these armored vehicles, Kirpi, if I'm not mistaken, mostly. And, they're not trustworthy, you can't really trust them. You don't know what their next move is going to be. They are, on the outside, they are against the United States, they're against NATO, they're against Israel, for example. But at the same time, behind the scenes, you have Erdogan, who is actually very close to Netanyahu and the Israeli military, because the Israeli military is very close to Azerbaijan, which is also a major, the closest probably Turkish ally. So, you can't trust them. You simply cannot take what they say seriously because just the very next day they could say something completely different. So I wouldn't discount the possibility that they might deliver this to the Kiev regime at some point. If the U.S. becomes too desperate, and they're ready, they might be ready to deliver the Patriot systems as they should have done back in 2018 to the Turks in exchange for giving them the S-400. Now, the interesting thing is Western media are claiming that the S-400 can be a game changer in the hands of the Kiev regime. However, the same S-400s, dozens of batteries that the Russians have, are not a game changer. So the same system can have very different properties depending on who the owner is, according to the Western media. So that's an interesting comedy, I guess. The Turks
are building a frigate or something, are they not? For the Ukrainians anyway.
Yeah, that's going to do very well against Russian anti-ship missiles, I'm sure.
Do you think that's like, wait till we build it so we get the final payment and then you can like take it out in the port?
Yeah.
Type of
do
deal?
whatever the hell you want with it. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like what are you going to do with a frigate against the entire Russian military? Like, even if you get like 20 of them, they're all just going to get sunk, because what we've seen so far is that missiles are far more powerful than ships. And which is why the U.S. Navy, especially its supercarriers, are kept thousands of kilometers, away from the shores of countries with very capable missiles. So, I mean, what is a frigate going to do? I mean, the frigate is a better solution for maritime warfare than an aircraft carrier because it's easier to replace a frigate.
Was it a frigate, by the way? Is it actually a frigate? I was like PFA.
Well, I think it's a frigate. It might be a corvette, but I'm not sure.
Or a cruiser, or like something like that.
Something like that, but I think it's a frigate. I'm pretty sure, like I'm 80% sure it's a frigate. I forgot what it's called.
In any case, Turkey. I think we've said more than enough about Turkey.
Oh, yeah.
Beware of America. Beware of war, America. America war junkie desperate for a fix.
Yeah. I wrote that. Yeah. Keep going.
That's. I was just gonna say that's one way to put it. You could put it. I mean, like I censored myself there. The joke was funny enough with people imagining stuff that I was gonna say after that. There was no reason for me to actually get kicked off of YouTube. It's funny with this whole YouTube thing. Like, if I can take a moment, with this whole like YouTube experience, let's put it that way, that I'm going through. The copyright strike / thing that they warned me with when I talked about Wagner with the Soviet Russian bear before it was cool to talk about Wagner, and they took down the video and they didn't want to hear about it, and they just gave me a warning. That strike, or whatever it's called, is gone now. But even though I like knowing that I'm like one strike away from having everything deleted, the whole time that I'm here, even though like YouTube is relaxed and like now it's a lot cooler and like we can talk about things that we couldn't talk about before, there's like this fear of like, you're gonna get slapped very soon, Yeah. So
I mean, it's a Western media platform, social media video platform, whatever you want to call it. So it's obvious that we're going to have a lot of censorship, and we're going to talk about that a bit later, I guess.
Highly likely. So the war junkie America, desperate for a fix. Refraining from comment again. Keep going.
Yeah, I actually wrote this on October 2nd, as the date shows. And, what I actually said in the article is that we see that the deep state or the United States government, Biden administration, whatever you want to call it, is determined to start a war before the election, or at least around the election, because they know that Trump, even though he's not like some gift from heaven, as many people think, they know that Trump is unlikely to start wars, because we've seen that during his first presidency. He was not very keen on starting the invasion of Venezuela, the starting of any potential war with Iran. He did, have certain actions against Iran and against Syria and against Venezuela as well. So it's not that he's like 100% peace candidate, but he's not ready to commit the entire U.S. military to start a certain war and maintain it for the next 20 years, as the Pentagon really wants. So they know that now it's their last chance to start a war. The only way to sabotage Trump, of course, aside from killing him or imprisoning him or doing something else to him to prevent him from becoming the president, which obviously he should become considering the polls, they can ensure that he doesn't get a second term. And the best way to do that is to start a war. And if the U.S. gets dragged into a war before Trump becomes president, then they might want to sustain this for the next 5, 6, or 10 years or even longer. So
I guess some sort of, at least a proxy war is what they want. However, maintaining a proxy war against countries like, I don't know, China and Russia is not a very easy thing to do. It's quite expensive, as we can see in Ukraine. So what they might try to do is to attack Iran. And Iran seems to be the most likely target, especially because Trump has a lot of these anti-Iranian war hawks in his team. Or a broader team, or a broader potential team when he wins the election. So
Trotskyites. I heard the new term is Trotskyites.
Yeah, the new, pretty much.
The new PC term.
Yeah. I mean, these people are. You have the likes of.
You can't say these
Lindsay.
People, man.
I don't even know how to call them. Like, they're creatures, because calling them people is a bit of a stretch, I guess. Humans, at least. Like you have the likes of John Bolton, you have guys like Lindsey Graham. I mean, anyone who knows anything about those guys knows that, they're very keen on starting wars and death and destruction around the planet, because they're also personally invested in this. They gain a lot of money and a lot of power just by starting wars. And they don't care where the war happens, as long as there is one.
I couldn't wait, because we're on a speed run of news.
Oh, yeah.
Catching up. By the way, for everybody who doesn't know, Drago Bosnic writes for BRICS news online portal. There are links in the description to his Telegram channel and also to some of his articles. Zelensky's laughable victory plan seems to be working. He already got 8 billion, but did he? Because this was written back in October 3rd. Now it's October 31st as we record this. Halloween, scary recording. But no, it's the Amber Heard effect, where she pledges that she paid the alimony or whatever it was, and she never paid it. So, like, the Americans pledged the 8 billion, but in reality, a month later, the only thing that's been delivered is like 10% of the air defense or something like that.
Yeah. Well, when I wrote this, that's what they said, that he's going to get 8 billion. So obviously, we now know that he didn't get all that, or at least. I mean, when they say 8 billion, it's not all money. Obviously, a lot of it is just military equipment in that scale of money, I guess. So, but still, even if Zelensky gets 100 million, and if he splits that with his closest buddies, he's in the win essentially. So he doesn't care, what happens to people who die in the front lines or with whomever, essentially, in Ukraine. He just cares about getting the money, and then, whenever all of this is over, just going to the Bahamas or some other offshore area where he's going to enjoy, or at least he thinks he's going to enjoy his retirement, I guess.
I don't think he will. Let's put it that way. Oh, wait.
That's what I would say.
Wait. Make Nuremberg great again. There it is. Make Nuremberg great again. Dining table of the accused at the Nuremberg trials, Germany, 1945. And this goes for like way further west than Kiev. Let's put it that way.
Oh yeah.
Like as far west as what's that city called? Anchorage. As far west as Anchorage.
So far west, you're actually going to get to the east. Basically.
Should we do more memes or more articles? No, let's get back to articles. This is like it's a comedy show. We don't do memes here. BRICS. More. Former U.S. ambassador to Russia looking to took part in planning? Wait, what?
Yep.
Former U.S. ambassador to Russia took part in planning Kursk incursion. This was almost a tongue twister, but it was actually like a logic twister in my mind, because I couldn't believe what I was being processed to read or something. What's going on here, Drago? What?
Yeah, like the guy in the picture is former U.S. ambassador to Russia, Michael McFaul, the complete, non-lunatic, non-warmonger who doesn't want nuclear war between Russia and the U.S. Obviously, that was all sarcasm. So the whole point is he actually took part in a war game back in February, organized by the Atlantic Council, the peace-loving organization. That wants to promote Western values all across the world, usually with cruise missiles and bombs and all these other
Never heard of
goodies.
them. Never heard of them.
Yeah.
I heard of the Bilderberg, though.
Obviously, they're a very non-prominent organization. Jokes aside, this guy and several other top-ranking diplomats, including John Herbst, the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine and Uzbekistan, they both took part in planning this and wargaming, as it's called. Who would have guessed that a few months later we would get the actual Kursk invasion? I guess all of that is completely unrelated to the actual events. They were just wargaming, like playing like an RTS game or something. So obviously claiming that this has to do with the real invasion is just Russian propaganda, and I'm not suggesting that in the slightest.
I missed the Russian propaganda jokes. I've had George on for a couple of recordings. It's been just like American propaganda and CIA stuff and like Department of Defense and like the Federal Reserve and like I missed the Putin and the Kremlin. We need some Xi propaganda. Have we got any North Korean propaganda coming? I think we do later. Oh, we've got this incident to discuss. That's Russian S70 UAV incident proves Russia conducting covert strike missions over Ukraine. Ukraine and covert Russian missile strikes.
Yeah, that sounds like you're from Texas.
Sounds like hardcore propaganda that you're trying to sell me, bro.
Oh yeah, it is. It is hardcore propaganda, my boy. So, no, seriously, like we know what happened. This is already like not a month ago, but it's going to be a month ago soon, maybe like 3 weeks or something. As we know, the Su-57 shot down an S70, which was unfortunate, but it's still a lot better than allowing this thing to go into the hands of the Kiev regime and NATO, just like what happened back in 2011 when the Iranians downed, thanks to Russian electronic warfare systems, downed the latest American drone known as the RQ-170 Sentinel, which then Iran reverse engineered and produced a bunch of other drones, which are now creating a lot of trouble in both Ukraine and the Middle East. So for the West, I mean. So the interesting thing is, what the Russians did was unfortunate but very smart, and I understand why they did it. However, what this proves is what we've been, saying for months and months, I guess, actually years at this point. The Su-57 is being used by the Russian military to a large extent over Ukraine, and it seems that they can't even detect the damn thing, let alone, try to shoot it down or something, because the area where this incident happened is very, very, it has very dense air defense coverage. So the fact that none of the air defense systems were able to target neither the Su-57 nor the S70 drone, tells us a lot about the actual capabilities of these jets.
Russian propaganda.
Pretty much.
It's Russian coping, man. Russian propaganda, Russian coping. Wait, what do we have here? Oh, should we take a break? Let's take a video break. We've got Sladkov, exclusive video break with a surprise as guest, and then Sladkov maybe takes a ride on a motorcycle. Well, that was before. This is
Позицію бік самою позицію. Вчера забрали целый лес.
Это где?
Это находится тут сразу налево, и сейчас можно сказать, что Шептуховка уже может.
So, to the people who don't know, this is a Serbian Chetnik. Drago,
Yeah.
do you want to tell people what a Serbian Chetnik is and who this Chetnik is?
Yeah. The gentleman in the video is called Bratislav Živković, and he's like the commander of Serbian Chetniks in the Russian army. The group of the Serbian Chetniks who are fighting for the Russian military. Chetniks are actually one of the oldest guerrilla warfare units or troops, if you want, in the world, actually. Continuously existing warfare units, because they've been around since the 19th century when they were fighting the Turks. When they were fighting the, let's say, the Turkish army and trying to liberate parts of Serbia that were still under Turkish control. However, they're far more well-known or infamous, depending on who you support, for their actions during World War II when they were fighting the Nazis. And of course, the history of Chetniks is a bit, let's say, strange to a lot of people, difficult to understand, because back in World War II, they were not very pro-Russian, let's say they were not very pro-Soviet. They were pro-Russian. They were always pro-Russian, but they were not pro-Soviet because they were anti-communist royalists. And then you had the other side, the partisans, who were actually communists, and they were pro-Soviet, and they were supported by the Soviet Union. So, the thing is, during World War II, you have this paradox that Chetniks were pro-American just based on the fact that America wasn't communist, or it was anti-communist. Now, this is flipped completely in the last 30 to 35 years, with the Chetniks becoming decidedly pro-Russian since the Soviet Union fell, essentially, meaning that there is no point in being against Russia, which is not a communist country anymore. So, a lot of people have this ambivalent attitude towards Chetniks, and modern-day Chetniks are, essentially just what they were in the 19th century and the early 20th century. They were always pro-Russian, pro-Serbian, and that's pretty much their primary modus operandi.
Could you maybe make a parallel with the, like how in the SMO area, so to say, in 404? Where's my pop-up? In 404, there's factions of Russians, and some of them are flying the Soviet flags, and others are flying the royalist. Empire flags.
Yeah,
the Tsarist flags.
The imperial flag. Yeah.
Is that kind of like a parallel that we can make here to make it like kind of
exactly
ridiculously simple for people?
Yeah, if we're to make it simple for people, as you said, there are various factions within the Russian military and within Russia itself. Obviously, you have the communists and you have the Tsarists or the royalists. We couldn't call them imperialists. It's a different word in English anyway. So the whole point is now you have the united Russia, where people of very differing views and ideological convictions can still fight together, because the communists in Russia realize that the West is their enemy. And the same thing can be said for the royalists, who understand that, the values, the so-called values that the West wants to impose, are completely against what essentially anything they believe in. So the same goes for Serbs. Serbs are essentially the equivalent of these Russian royalists, or these, let's say, pro-Tsarist people. And in Serbia, something similar is happening, where we have people who are, let's say, of communist extraction, like they had family members or ancestors fighting for the communists, and people who have ancestors who are Chetniks or royalists in some other way, and they're also together. I have friends and colleagues who are essentially like that. For example, I come from a Chetnik background, and I have friends who come from backgrounds which are completely opposed to them, or were opposed back in World War II. And we would be enemies, if we were living in that time. But that's not the case now. And we realize that, the enemy is the same. And we see that the enemy that wants to destroy all of us is essentially the same. And that same enemy is the enemy of the people in the West. And I think a lot of them realize that.
Something saves the Serbs. Something saves
Yeah.
the Serbs. The
Pretty
four
much.
S's on the Serbian emblem
Oh yeah.
is
Yeah.
only solely solidarity saves the Serbs is how I would transliterate
Oh
it
yeah,
into,
that's perfect.
into English.
That's a perfect way to say it.
But yeah, the point is, I was just hoping that you would touch upon a little bit, because when Chetniks are mentioned, because during that era in the German occupation of Serbia and then Yugoslavia, or the Balkans, there were phases, let's say, where the Chetniks at least got the reputation that they were collaborators. And
Yeah.
I've heard stories that they were at some points at the beginning, and I've heard stories that they were exactly the opposite, and that they were smeared by the communists to be painted as the collaborators so as to justify what the communists did. Now, as somebody who is not educated in Serbian, schools, I am removed from this, how should I say, narrative. Yeah. So, do you want to maybe iron out some of those details for people who might not be clued in?
Well, I'm going to try to keep it short because, it's a very wide topic. First of all, there were like two factions of Chetniks, and one of them, which was like the smaller one, with I don't.
You're not a Chetnikologist, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm not a Chetnikologist, obviously, but I do know a bit about Serbian history, being a Serb myself, obviously. So the whole point is there was this small faction of Chetniks who were loyal to the Serbian, let's say, occupation government that was like a sort of like a Vichy style government that was imposed in Belgrade. There was this guy called Milan Nedic, who was the president of this government. He essentially just sacrificed himself, sort of like what some politicians are doing right now. And I'm not going to name any names, but I'm pretty sure people will understand. He sacrificed his reputation and his family and his life, essentially, just to make sure that Serbia doesn't get completely divided and carved up by the Nazis, and specifically the Ustaše and these other Nazi allies, who would then create an even worse massacre of Serbs within Serbia itself, because other Serbian regions were being massacred very heavily by the Ustaše and these other Albanians and these other Nazi collaborators, actual Nazi collaborators. So there was this small faction of Chetniks who decided not to go against the Germans so as not to provoke them and cause retribution, because at that time the Germans had this idea that for every wounded German you're going to get 50 shot civilians. Like these civilians would then be abducted and then shot by the German military, and for every dead German soldier you would have 100 people who would be killed.
Shot to death, yeah, not like shot in the leg, yeah.
Yeah, not in the leg, like actually killed, they would be executed. And in a situation like that, it's pointless to fight the Germans. So what the Chetniks did, they mostly moved to the areas of that were controlled by the Croatians. That's modern day Bosnia and modern day Croatia, which is like the western part of former Yugoslavia. And this is where they conducted most of their actions, because the Ustaše, or the Croatian Nazis and their allies in the area, particularly the so-called the Handjar division, which was like a Bosnian Muslim organization, peaceful, peace-loving, democratic organization, obviously.
Just so everybody's in tune, this is not the 90s. This is the 40s. We're going to get to the 90s soon. I got the 90s queued.
Pretty much. It's crazy, and then you had these Chetniks who were fighting in various parts of Nazi-occupied Yugoslavia, where the Serbs were the majority. And then you also had the partisans, who were the communists. So, there were local, let's say, commanders who would sometimes try to collaborate with other factions, including the Germans. And this is also true for the communists, the partisans and communists, who would actually work with the Germans and even Ustaše sometimes to make sure they survive, because they were often in a very difficult position where they would be destroyed. So it was a real mess. Like going into it would require like not one but like several episodes of talking just about this. So I'm not going to go into that. But the point is, both the Chetniks and the partisans had moments where they would negotiate, at least with the Germans and the other occupying forces. And for instance, the Chetniks actually had a very good agreement with the Italians, because the Italian zone, because there was the Italian zone and the German zone of occupation in former Yugoslavia, they had like this agreement where the Chetniks wouldn't attack Italians, and the Italians would prevent the Croatian Ustaše massacres of Serbian civilians. So, they realized, okay, if these guys are not going to kill us, at least, well, they must be the good guys. I mean, the good guys, the guys who are not killing us, essentially. And then you have the Germans who are still killing us, and the Croatians who are doing that, very gladly, I would say. And of course, that was the 40s. When all of this was over, the communists won, obviously, because the Soviet Union destroyed the German forces and moved into Yugoslavia. And then, obviously, they helped install the communist government. By the 1990s, as we know,
you mean the British did?
Yeah, well, the British, yeah, we could say that's the case. They've been helping the communists very much during the 40s, so we could argue that's the case as well. So after the Yugoslavia dissolved in early 1990s, you had the Chetniks coming back into the spotlight, because a lot of Serbs, they remained Chetniks, even though they weren't really bragging about it during communist years, because that was kind of dangerous to do. So during the 1990s, they rose to prominence once again, but now the enemy was different. The enemy was their old ally from World War II. It was the United States and NATO. And to a large degree, actually, the enemy was the same also, because NATO, which is now essentially the continuation of the Reich, as they say, was pretty much supporting the exact same people they were supporting back in World War II. That means Croatians, Bosnian Muslims, Albanians, and these other oppressed groups that were just fighting for freedom and democracy, as is the case always. So, this is where the Chetniks became resolutely pro-Russian. They realized that, Russia is their potential ally, or an ally in this case now. So this is why we have a lot of them fighting in the Russian military, even though, the Soviet traditions are still very strong in Russia, obviously, especially in the military. But they are ready to overlook these divisions on an ideological scale, because they, as I said before, they realize that the enemy is the same. That was the short version of the events.
Yeah, no comment. I've got some weird things going on here with my internet. I don't know. I'm expecting this recording to be interrupted at any second. Because we're doing this via Telegram, and Telegram here is telling me that it's not even connected to the internet. And for some reason, my internet seems to be playing games. So if we do have a technical interruption, this might end up being a paused and then re-edited recording. But yeah, the trigger for all of that. Oops, what did I do here? No, I hate this new design of this Windows thing. The trigger for all that is because I was saying that you were coping with that Russian stuff, Russian drone being shot down by the Russian drone. And it immediately reminded me of this gem, which is basically, by the way, I can hear an echo now. So if you want to turn down your volume just a tiny bit, for some reason it starts after an hour. I don't know why. But anyway,
is it better?
So yeah. As soon as you reached, I could hear myself getting quieter. So Ukraine News Live direct hit. For anybody who's been paying attention, these are FPV drones. And they're FPV drones that are fiber optic that the Russians have that are immune to electronic warfare. Here we see that video. And this is electronic warfare jeep trying to block drones, protect the tank, and this is where that screenshot comes from. And it's just hilarious.
Direct hit on a Russian tank with Ukrainian markings, obviously.
Yeah, obviously. Direct hit. So yeah, I just wanted to pop that up. In the propaganda war, things have not changed very much. Russian propaganda is still winning because it has an element of truth in it. This recording seems to be still going on. So we're going to continue. Iran quake or nuclear test? Why 4.5 magnitude tremors are suspicious? Did Iran just test a nuclear weapon? My money is on yes.
Yeah. There are two possibilities in this case. It either did or it pretended to do that in order to, discourage Israel and the U.S. from attacking. Because
what do you mean pretended to? Like, time out. What do you mean pretended to? Like, took like 10 million tons of TNT and just like put it into
I'm just saying, like, because the only ones that I've actually got this information from are these Armenians, who were essentially the only ones, that's what the news are saying at least, the only ones who detected this earthquake. So I didn't get any info from, any other Azeri sources who are even closer and should have actually, picked something up. So the point is, this is why I'm ambiguous. Like, I'm not sure 100% whether this was the case or not. However,
time out. You're saying that the earthquake was only picked up from one monitoring station? And like other monitoring stations,
I've tried finding
have data.
I've tried finding something about it, in Azeri or Turkish or some other sources, because any station any seismologic station that is close to that area or relatively close would have picked it up, right? But there weren't any other sources except this one Armenian station. Armenia has fairly, normal ties with Iran. So I presume, if Iranian agents would try to pose as an Armenian seismological station, they would go there. They wouldn't go to Azerbaijan or Turkey. So essentially, I guess that's one possibility. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying that's one possibility. We don't really know whether Iran has a nuclear weapon or not. The whole point is, if they have it, good for them. If they don't, they want to make it look like they have one, because that's what would possibly deter the U.S. and Israel from attacking. So, I mean, the whole point is, there is this, to a certain degree, let's say, religious pushback in Iran, where Ayatollah essentially thinks that nuclear weapons are immoral. So because Iran, is essentially ruled by Ayatollahs, it's very possible they don't want actual nuclear weapons to be, deployed by Iran. So the point is, we have to take that into account. Like, there is a possibility that it doesn't really exist, and they don't have it, and that they would just like to make it seem as if it's there. But anyway, people can read the article.
So it's like a double bluff.
Yeah. I mean, it is one of the possibilities, it's not 100%. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying that it could be, maybe they really have a nuke, who knows? But in my opinion, this is a possibility that shouldn't be rejected entirely. That they just bluffed the whole thing.
I'm giggling because the next article it just gets better. Speaking of bluffs, we know somebody who doesn't bluff. Kim Jong-un.
Yeah.
Kim Jong-un, North Korea enhancing strategic arsenal, building first nuclear-powered submarine. This was news. I think I had pictures of it somewhere. There might be here in the article, but I'm not going to click through all of these links. But yeah, Drago, tell us about this new development of North Korean.
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to make it clear, North Korea already has a lot of subs. Like, some sources say up to 500, although we don't really know what the state of all those subs is.
or whether all of them are operational. Even if it's just half of those are operational, it's pretty dangerous for countries in the region that might think it's a smart idea to support any U.S. aggression against North Korea. So the whole point is they already built.
They have midget subs too, right? They have like midget subs.
Yeah, they have a lot of midget subs. And some of them, interestingly, are the derivative of the so-called Yugo class, which is like Serbian or Yugoslav submarine.
I watched a video about that recently. Go on.
Yeah. So like they have derivatives of these things, and also the submarine-launched versions of these ballistic missiles that are actually installed on submarines are also some of the Soviet era or Soviet based on Soviet missiles, and one of those missiles actually has a NATO reporting name Serb. So that's pretty interesting, when it comes to the connection between Serbia or Yugoslavia and North Korea. Like those are two very important things for them, because those submarines, or at least any sort of submarine technology, is very important for them. Because it ensures retaliation, even if North Korea, stops existing because of freedom and democracy or something. And now they're building their first nuclear-powered submarine. So I just want to make a distinction. There are nuclear-armed submarines which are not necessarily nuclear-powered, and there are nuclear-powered submarines which can be armed with anything, including non-nuclear weapons. The whole point is. Being able to build a nuclear-powered submarine, it puts you into a very, very exclusive club, because there are only, as far as I know, there are only 6 countries that actually deploy such technologies. It's the US, the UK, Russia, China, and India. France also, I forgot France. So Australia is also getting them from the US, but they don't have like an indigenous technology or the industrial capacity to build them. Although they're trying to get one. So the whole point is, very, very few countries have these things. And all of those countries, except North Korea, are big countries, and we could call them global powers. So if North Korea is going to get this thing, it's going to ensure their survival, forever, essentially, for as long as they have these things. Because being able to park a submarine 1,000 kilometers off the coast of California and hitting anything or any point in continental U.S., it ensures that the U.S. doesn't get any, funny ideas about spreading freedom and democracy in North Korea. So I guess if they want to try, they could. Good luck with that, I suppose.
North Korean propaganda. Moving right along. We're not even going to get to the real North Korean propaganda. We'll save that for next episode. French troops in Romania to train for war with Russia. Why don't they go to 404? Where's my 404 pop-up? Why don't they go to 404? They can.
They do go to the 404. It usually doesn't end up well for them. It's been several instances of these Russian hypersonic missiles, dropping out of the sky. After the Ukrainians shoot them down, obviously, they somehow drop out of the sky right on top of their heads. But that's the Ukrainians and the Kiev regime defending Europe, because the Russians would always fire hypersonic missile trying to reach Europe, but they can't because those keep shot down by the Kiev regime forces. And unfortunately, they always end up on the heads of these NATO personnel there. I don't know how it happens, but it does all the time. I've written like a dozen articles about it so far. Jokes aside.
For people who understand how military technology works, they must have found that hilarious. For people who have no idea, you just sounded like you were the most pro-Western possible pundit. Ukraine is stopping the missiles from coming. Their air defense is stopping everything. They're defending Europe, man.
No, seriously. I always laugh because there are actual military experts who actually say these things in Western media, and I always chuckle. I laugh my ass out, to be honest. So
There were also medical experts who said a lot of things. After 2019, everybody with expert attached to their name.
Yeah.
Is not an expert.
You know, the interesting thing is, when it comes to this article, they were saying that they are going to train a couple of battalions, you know, which is like upwards of 10,000 soldiers that are going to be battle ready by 2027. So, you know, it's interesting because they keep saying that the Russians have like up to 4 million soldiers at this point. I mean, they could muster that many in 24 hours if there's a potential war between the US and NATO, between Russia and NATO. So, you know, like training 25,000 soldiers between 10 and 25 by year 2027 doesn't strike me as very...
Wait. What did you say? How many can the Russians muster?
Up to 4 million with all the reserve personnel that they could get in. Like that's the mobilization potential in like 24 to 48 hours in case of a major war between Russia and NATO. So
you're joking.
No, I'm not joking. Like there's actually the numbers I'm quoting are from like before the SMO. Like the number could be much bigger now, but the point is before the SMO, the Russians had around like 1 million to 1.5 million soldiers who were like active duty, like a combination of let's say professionals and conscripts. And then they had like a 2.5 million people in the reserve, like in the immediate reserve. But the point is, this number is probably like, I don't know, 30% higher at this point. So we might actually have like a Russian capability of mustering up to 5 million soldiers after the SMO, especially because a lot of these soldiers now also have, you know, battlefield experience. So, you know, if you really compare that to what the NATO could muster up to 250,000 like immediate combat ready troops at this point from all of its members outside of the US. So like, how does that compare? I mean, seriously. And the point is like the Russians would have a massive long range strike systems advantage and also a massive advantage in artillery. In terms of, let's say, aviation, they would be pretty let's say, I mean, it wouldn't be one-sided, but it would be pretty equal with the difference that the Russians have, you know, a much bigger and more powerful air defense component. So having like these troops trained for war with Russia in Romania, I mean, the French, it's just ridiculous. But they keep doing it. You know, they keep pushing for this enmity with Russia, and I guess it's sort of like an attempt to respond to, you know, the decolonization of Africa that the Russians are aiding tremendously with a lot of resources and a lot of men, especially the Wagner guys. So yeah, I guess
very quickly for them.
Yeah, it's not going to be pretty.
Or bistro quickly. Maybe Kinjal will be the new word for bistro in Paris soon.
When I read the etymology of the word bistro, I was like, it was crazy. So I advise people to check the etymology of that French word. It's not a French really, but.
So Kinjal will be the new bistro. It'll be like the espresso in Italy. Can I have a Kinjal? One Kinjal, please.
If there's anyone left to order an espresso after the whole thing is over, so.
There will be. There will always be somebody left over. Zelensky's pointless pre-election peace summit suddenly canceled. This is, like you like to say, old news, but this is not a news show, so we're just doing comedy about old news. No shit, it was canceled. That's like, I don't know. It's because there was a hurricane.
Yeah. That too, there was a hurricane, which is a much more important emergency than, you know, having like a sort of like a quasi birthday party for our favorite freedom and democracy boy, Zelensky. So, I mean, it's the entire concept of a peace summit where you don't invite the second party to the conflict is ridiculous, and anyone with a single functioning brain cell would call it idiotic. But we live in very interesting times. I'm trying to stay polite by saying that, and we had several summits, like peace summits, where Russia was not invited. And then, all these countries that were sending delegations realized, okay, we're just wasting our time and money, and, we don't want to do this anymore. And then they told Zelensky, okay, you should stop doing this because it's pointless. And even the US couldn't actually, be bothered to try to arm twist all these countries to send the delegations every single, month or so. So they said, okay, let's invite Russia to see if we can fake a peace summit at least. And then the Russians told them, to go where the sun doesn't shine, as the saying goes, I suppose. And they just decided, okay, to hell with it. We're not gonna, have a peace summit. But luckily, Zelensky had an alternative. It's called the Victory Plan. That's the better alternative, I suppose.
I want to take this moment to remind everybody that this channel is not eligible for monetization. I want to thank everybody who's bought me a coffee. Thank all the Patreons who've supported me quietly in the background. And remind you that you can find Drago's articles and Drago's Telegram in the post. Speaking of Croatia and those fans of nuts from World War II era,
Yep.
Croatia will be transferring 30 M84 tanks and 30 M80 BMP to Ukraine. In return, Germany will pay Croatia for part of Leopard 828 tanks, and the picture is unrelated. Totally unrelated. Has
Completely
nothing
unrelated.
to do with the text.
I mean, man, don't be racist. Like, if you really believe this is the case, I mean, it's terrible.
What do you have to say about Yugoslav M84s being sent to?
Oh man, like I hate it because those should be our tanks. Like our tanks that are just like any other weapon that was inherited from Yugoslavia was actually a Serbian weapon, which is why I hate the fact that it's being sent to the Kiev regime. But I guess it's the history repeating itself, because a lot of Serbian, or actually Yugoslav, weapons from World War II were captured by the Germans and then sent to the Eastern Front. And we know how that ended, and I guess the same will happen in this case. So they're just wasting money buying those new Leopard 2A8 tanks that are going to end up the same as those Tigers and Panzer IVs during World War II. They will end up in the same place, I guess, because they're aiming for the same battlefield. So, I mean, good luck with that. I mean, the Russians, they're weak, they're losing, they don't have any ammo, they use shovels all the time. So I guess, you might even actually use, like some sort of like, armored vehicle instead of a tank, because you don't really need it to win against the Russians.
I flashed this up before we started recording. It's a test for you, Drago. What is this, and what are we in? I have the answer.
Wow.
We've got the clock ticking here. This has turned into a comedy game show. Tick tock, tick tock, tick.
I'm not sure. Like, is it like the interior of an airplane or a submarine?
It's a Ka-52 in a Mi-26.
Oh my God! Like, I would have never guessed. Yeah, it's obviously stripped of everything because it couldn't fit, right? But still,
right?
Damn, yeah.
It's a Ka-52 in a Mi-26. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, the Mi-26, the Halo, as it's called in NATO, is just crazy. Like, it is the biggest and the largest and most powerful helicopter ever made. I think you were. I think it was one of your shows where we played the clip of the Mi-26 carrying a passenger jet. So, yeah.
Look it up for everybody who's not familiar with the beast. So, yeah, I wanted to, before we get into your last article, touch upon this little piece of history brought to you by Republika Srpska Krajina from a telegram, translated by the working brother. And yet another day, another anniversary of an ethnic cleansing of Serbs. Yet again, the first time meme that most Serbs feel when talking to Russians about the recent persecution and racism at the hands of Western aligned forces, read crypto Nazis, of the modern era. This would be the precursor to much of the following GAE, which is Globalist American Empire. Experiments in narrative meddling, Nazi funding, jihadi motivating, shaping news, organ trafficking that were tested on the territory of a former Yugoslavia, quote unquote. So, like I was saying, we were talking about the 40s. Now we're going to get into the 90s. On this day, October 29, 91, the so-called Croatian crisis headquarters in Slovenska Požega issued an invitation to the Serbian population to leave. This invitation to leave. Sounds pretty fucking Israeli to me. Invitation to leave. Oh, I mean Nazi. I mean, yeah, I don't know what I mean anymore. It's a comedy show. Mandatory evacuation of Serbs from 26 villages in the municipality of Slavonska Požega. This was a prelude to the genocidal operations of Croatian paramilitary units and Croatian police in the area of Slavonia, which are known under the names of Orkan and Otkos. During Operation Orkan, the area of Slavonska Požega, etc., 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 yellow on map, and during the parallel Operation Otkos, area of, etc., etc., were ethnically cleansed, green on the map. Operation Hurricane aimed to eliminate the Serbian people outside of the borders of the Serbian autonomous regions, while Otkos was people who were part of those autonomous regions. And here is the map of this is Osijek here, and the areas, how could I say, this is your neighborhood.
Yeah, this is I was in the area that was called Dalmatia, and that's like in like the area that's much closer to the sea. That is actually, it has a seashore. And this is the so-called Slavonia, which is like the northeastern part of what today is Croatia, unfortunately. So the
inland part, basically.
Yeah, their inland part, which borders Bosnia and Hungary, and in the eastern part also Serbia. And the interesting thing is, like, the Serbs were the majority in these areas, at least in terms of like territorial coverage, or their ethnic space was actually the majority of the region. So, and there are no more Serbs in this area anymore. And the same goes for Dalmatia and these other parts that are between. So essentially, nearly half, or around 50% of Croatia was inhabited by Serbs, and they were like a significant part of the population. And now they are on a level of a statistical mistake. And they are like they have a majority in only like several of these municipalities, which is like, I don't know, 1 or 2 or maybe 5% of modern day Croatian territory. So it's interesting how that goes. It reminds us of very similar episodes around the world. I'm not going to say which parts, obviously, because that part is obviously not in the middle of the Middle East, and it has nothing to do with Palestine, right?
I was just going to say, it's definitely not that aircraft carrier type project from the Balfour eras. Definitely not that, because that has nothing to do, because they're Muslims. They're like majority Muslims, and we're majority Serbs, Orthodox Christians. So like, can't be the same. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, you're racist for thinking it's the same. Not to mention that I wish maybe I'll load that up for the second one, but we'll get into 404 and how it ties into the promised land of the original promised land. In any case, Serbs will appreciate the censored part. Yeah. Russians, hi. First time? It's really not the first time for you, or at least it's like you should remember, but like you weren't paying attention. You weren't paying attention to us. You weren't paying attention to yourselves. And now we are where we are, and it's time to start paying attention. That goes for the Westoids to pay attention to what's going on with you. Speaking of, should we get into the elections, or should we leave that for the next one? We'll leave it.
Let's leave it for the next one then, because it's a big topic.
We are past the hour officially. I'm trying to look for that tab with Poland. There we go. Poland, expecting Kiev's regime's total defeat, planning for war with Russia. Before you go into it, Soviet Russian Bear posted a joke. Ukraine is pissed about North Korean troops and is threatening to attack them if they join the war in Ukraine. So the joke goes, if the Ukrainians attack North Korea, where will they meet? The correct answer, on the Polish border.
Sure. Good luck with that.
Because the Ukrainians will be on the Polish side, and the North Koreans will be on the Ukrainian, now Russian side of the border, as part of Russia, defending Russian territory. So, I like that joke. It tickled me in a way that most jokes don't. It was geographical in nature. It was beyond racism. Poland expecting Kiev's regime total defeat, planning for war with Russia. Like, what's there to say? What do you want to say about this? Do you want to say anything?
Well, I mean, it's pretty much in the title, like their military, and I'm not talking. This is not like some analysts, who are sitting in some think tank room or whatever, talking about endless possibilities. This is like the real top-ranking high command that is making decisions about what's going to happen, and this general, he's like a retired general, but he was like the chief of the Polish general staff until last year. He's literally saying he's expecting one Russian division in Lviv, one in Brest, and one in Grodno. And Brest and Grodno are in Belarus. Lviv is in the far west of Ukraine. So this guy is saying this directly, and he's talking about the
what's
potential.
A division for us non-military people? How many military persons in uniform is that a division?
Well, it depends, but it's like between 50 and 100,000 soldiers. So good luck with that, trying to destroy that. So the whole point is, if there are that many, and it's not just about the number of troops, it's about the sheer quantity of military equipment they would have. And I'm talking about artillery, tanks, armored vehicles, drones,
electronic warfare, fiber optic drones.
Electronic warfare systems, missiles. Although they wouldn't really have missiles that close to the border, they would be, they would be, far from that area where they would be safe. And from that safe area, they would be able to, shoot at anything moving in Poland or any other country that would be foolish enough to join such a war. So the whole point is, what exactly do you have, or what exactly do you get by this? And the crazy thing is, they're talking about targeting St. Petersburg from Poland. What's the point of that? What do you get by that? I mean, it's you don't
get
really,
a crater. You get a crater the size of Poland. You get a crater.
Yeah, you get a crater the size of Poland. So even if they could muster, I don't know, 500 missiles, which would all be short range and medium range in the best case scenario, what exactly would they be able to hit? Like they would be able to hit maybe western parts of Russia. Sure, they would be able to hit Poland, but Poland has nuclear weapons now, and their pilots and soldiers who command these missile brigades have the right to use these Russian nukes to retaliate against someone who's attacking Poland, who's attacking Belarus. So like if you really want to get nuked by Minsk, go for it.
I think we covered Poland quite enough.
Yeah.
Let's do some of this. This is hilarious. You shared this with me just before we started. Sudden unexpected. Totally shocking. Von der Leyen promises to vaccinate EU population against wrongthink. Sounds Orwellian. According to Ursula, who is currently facing a criminal case over the EU government's strange contacts with the pharmaceutical companies, people in society who hold views that contradicting globalist narrative must be vaccinated. Let's hear her in her own words, yeah?
Yeah.
As technology evolves, we need to build up societal immunity around information manipulation.
Time out. How many times do you think has she said societal in her life? I think no more than 3 times has she said societal in her whole life. I've said it more times. In any case, let's hear what von der Leyen has to say.
Because research has shown that pre-bunking is much more successful than debunking.
Wait, what did she just fucking say? Pre-bunking is much more successful. Yeah, I heard it. I heard it. I'm just making
she's
sure.
She's using new words. I've never heard the word pre-bunking before. So
neither have I.
She's she's trying to use medical terms and trying to apply them to information warfare. So now she's saying pre-bunking, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. I suppose it means instead of debunking and trying to disprove the point, you prevent someone from making the point entirely. So that's at least how I see it.
That's an interesting way to see it. I understand why you might see it that way coming from a German who is saying it. As we discussed earlier in this talk, but seriously speaking though, I was hoping it means they'll come out with a narrative that doesn't allow you to find any flaws in the narrative. Let you
that's
speak.
Hard when that's very hard to do when all your narratives are fucking false. So
Shh. I'm pre-bunking you there. Hold on. Let me rewind this a bit. This pre-bunking shit is hilarious. This is like early New Year's gift.
Much more successful than debunking.
What a retarded.
Debunking is basically the opposite of debunking.
Oh, thank you.
It's preferable.
Oh, so smart, yeah.
Think of information manipulation as a virus.
Your mom is a virus.
Treating an infection once it has taken hold.
You are the infection, yeah.
Vaccinate. Oh my god! How do these people not throw up when watching themselves?
I think Serbia needs to pre-bunk itself from Ursula. I think Serbia needs to put up stickers everywhere that say this is not a call to action. This is just a joke. That it would be funny that if Ursula came somewhere and it said we were pre-bunking your European Union. Oh, by the way, where's that thing? Did I send it to you? I think I sent it to you. Let me read it. Here. Where is it? Is this it? Translate. Oh, it won't let me translate. Why is this not working like it's supposed to? God,
is it on Telegram?
Anyway. Yeah. Anyway, doesn't matter. Pre-bunking, I'll let it be. Let's hear what more she has to say.
Because disinformation relies on people passing it on to others. It is essential that people know what malign information's influence is and what the techniques are that are behind it. And as the knowledge goes up, our chances of being influenced goes down. And that builds up the society resilience that we will need.
Even in our audience, people are like,
I mean, like, if you just, like, to most people, this may seem like bureaucratic blabbering, that doesn't concern them.
It's newspeak. It's
yeah, it's
Orwellian
newspeak. Like, you have
it needs to be pre-bunk.
Yeah, you have to be really, eloquent to understand what she's really saying. And, this could, like, be like shortened to one sentence, and that's "you're fucked." Like in the simplest terms, you're fucked if you think the wrong thing. If you have like thoughts that are not approved or pre-bunked by the EU Commission, and now they're looking for legal ways to ensure that you have to conform to the right thing. So I guess, if you really want to become part of the European Union, or unfortunately, if you already are, get ready for more freedom of democracy and more freedom of press, just to make sure that you have all the freedoms that are guaranteed to you by the EU Constitution, that doesn't allow for any sort of, oppression by the unelected bureaucrats in Brussels.
European propaganda. No, seriously speaking, I think we've had enough. I think we need some mansplaining for the end to round it off. We're gonna reveal a secret of mansplaining. Feminism is just a long con by the patriarchy to allow men to take their final form as stay-at-home gamers by convincing women that taking on more responsibility is empowering and liberating. Shit, they know. No one will believe her. On that bombshell, I think that's enough for now. We've gone well over the hour. It was an executive decision by myself. Drago, if you have anything more to say, you'll say it in the next episode, because I know there's a lot more to say. Everybody like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. You know what to do. See you soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.